Today we are back with another video and we're going to try to answer one question, and that is, what is the problem that's going on with Gunther right now? Obviously there's a lot of questions revolving him in WrestleMania at the moment. Who's going to be his opponent? The big Rey Mysterio injury happened. It kind of shifted things to where we were going to go with this WrestleMania momentum, and obviously had a lot of momentum after that John Cena and AJ Styles retirement match. So it's kind of curious that he hasn't been on Raw the past few weeks, hasn't been on SmackDown or anything. So I guess I am just kind of curious what's happening, what's the problem, and how can we fix it?
Yeah, for a guy like Gunther, who obviously has a very torn apart reputation right now. Obviously, a lot of people love him and think he's a great technical wrestler, and that's me in that camp. But there's also a side of people who think he's a little bit boring. He's a little bit kind of too much the same in every match, even though I disagree with that. But he is a guy who's at the very top of the WWE right now, or was at the top of the WWE, but has the past few months obviously had the AJ stuff, had the Cena stuff. But besides that, you know, there's a lot of time where he's not being showcased as much, and I think that's kind of the thing about him.
Yeah, and he had a really cool thing going on with Dragon Lee. They had an amazing match on Monday Night Raw just a few weeks ago. So they could have just ran that and just did that at Mania, and just a big, maybe some kind of stipulation match, like a last man standing, something of that nature, especially since he was tag team partners with AJ Styles. So it all just kind of makes sense. But they're not going that direction, at least the way it looks as of right now. But that's kind of the question, is what direction are they going to go right now? Because Rey Mysterio is out. We're 1 month away from WrestleMania at this point. And yeah, that's kind of the big question. There's a few directions that we can go, but they haven't hinted at anything. They haven't kind of made it clear where he's gonna go. So we don't really know what to think going forward with Gunther.
So where did things start going wrong for Gunther? I think you kind of look back to the start of the Cena tournament where he would end up getting that match, and they started kind of building this reputation of being the career killer. He kind of said that, you know, I beat Goldberg a few months ago, now it's time for me to do the same thing, but now to John Cena, everybody's favorite, and he did just that. And I think that's a really cool gimmick. Obviously, we've seen people like Randy Orton who have done that same gimmick and have, you know, become one of the greatest names in the companies of all time. So that definitely can work. However, when that's the only thing that character has, it won't work. You have to give him something else. And unfortunately for Gunther, they've only really built him as, you're the career killer guy, and that's kind of it. Whereas before, he was this big dominant guy who was still new to the scene on Raw, but was kind of building up a reputation, had the IC title run, and it ended up becoming a world champion a few years later. So yet for him, it feels like he's just in a weird spot where he can't go anywhere right now.
Kind of had this slow progression after they got up to the main roster with the IC title, built up to the world title, had a dominant run with that, won a second time as well. And yeah, it was just a very interesting time for Gunther, because it almost feels as if he peaked already, but there is still so much more to go. He hasn't locked up with a lot of the main eventers. We've seen him have a match with Cody Rhodes, we've seen him have a match with CM Punk. We haven't seen him have a rivalry, a feud, like an actual program with these people, and he hasn't even touched the Roman Reigns or, you know, people of that nature. So that's the people who we're looking forward to. That's how you progress Roman Reigns, in my opinion. But you know, the thing is also is they built him up so highly that you can't even bring him back down to that mid card. Like, he could come back to the IC title and, you know, maybe put some more prestige on it, but it's already doing pretty good right now. I mean, Dom was doing a pretty good run before the injury. Now Penta has it. That's a really good run that people's been wanting to see happen, is Penta with singles gold in the WWE. So you don't really want to ruin that. And you also could put him in the United States picture, but that's just kind of a dead division at the moment. I don't even know who you would want to put him up against, because we've seen him versus Priest, we've seen him versus Drew, we've seen him versus pretty much everybody over there except maybe Jacob Fatu.
The world title scene is kind of booked right now, and it's kind of filled with a lot of names who are going to be in that picture, like a Finn Balor, who's probably going to have some type of match after WrestleMania, whether that is still Punk or Roman Reigns as champion. They feel like we want to give him something, or, you know, there's a lot of ways, a lot of people in that group. I think putting him in the IC championship race again isn't so bad of an idea. I think having big name people going into the mid-card division not only gives it more build and more hype, and it still kind of gives that top guy, you know, something to do in the meantime before they get back to that world champion. We see Becky Lynch, somebody who, when we thought she was going to return, she would go straight to the world title scene, but she went to IC champion because I needed somebody to kind of have a good reign, even though Lyra was doing her thing. But unfortunately, they wanted to get something a little bit bigger, a little bit more momentum going, and Becky Lynch is a perfect person for that. So you could do the same thing with a Gunther, but however, they haven't just done that just yet.
Then I guess the next question is, was he booked too strong, too early? Obviously, with the WWE, the way they do things is basically always a slow progression to when you win the world title. And he did kind of win that world title pretty quickly compared to a lot of people. Now, that's not saying he didn't deserve it, of course, because he is one of the best wrestlers in the world, not just in WWE, but in the world. So he does definitely deserve the title run, but did they maybe put him in those big moments and big matches too early? And the answer for me is going to be no. I think he handled all those situations perfectly. He put put on amazing matches in all those situations. I just think WWE needs to do a better job of putting him in bigger situations today, because there is a lot of big things that you can do. You can put him against Roman, you can put him against Jacob Fatu. Everyone's still waiting for that Ilya Dragunov match. There's a whole lot of things you can do with Gunther. We just haven't quite yet seen it.
I think from his Intercontinental Championship up until when he won the first World Heavyweight Champion he won, it felt like it was a really good trajectory. You know, I know a lot of people thought it probably was a little bit too fast because they didn't hear about him. They didn't know about him in NXT and what he was doing on the indie scene before he signed to WWE. But if you go back and look at it, it makes perfect sense why he was in that World Championship scene only 2 or 3 years into the WWE contract. So yeah, it makes sense for Gunther to be there.
And then for the last point of this video, we have that he's never really been a number 1 guy. He's always been just the number 2, the 3, the 4, maybe even 5, but never really the number 1 guy. Even when he was the World Heavyweight Champion, that still wasn't the WWE Championship, and that still wasn't a heavily kind of invested in program that he had. He was doing Damian Priest stuff and a little bit of Finn Balor stuff and things of that nature. So it wasn't these big, exciting matches that he was on until he lost the title to CM Punk, of course. Doesn't feel like they maybe trusted him to be that number 1 guy. I don't really know why that would be. I mean, he does really good promos. He does everything perfectly as a heel, of course. He's not this big baby face like Cody is. But, you know, he is the big heel. He does really good sit-down interviews. If you've seen him talk on the Chris Van Vliet's or wherever he's done interviews, he does speak very nicely, and he does good English and all that kind of stuff. So there's no real reason why he can't be the number 1 heel in all of WWE.
As you mentioned, during his first title run, having the matches with Damian Priest, yeah, he had quite a few matches with Damian, but a lot of those had some interaction with Finn and Damian, and at that point in time, they were also feuding with each other, so it kind of felt like a triangle where Gunther, the world champion, was out of the loop. And I think you can go back and watch some of those prediction and review videos, you would even hear us say that as well. So, yeah, Gunther just really needs some type of big storyline. I don't know why they treat him like somebody who's just this big spectacle, kind of like a Brock Lesnar is kind of nowadays, but yeah, he feels like somebody who just should be a main star of your brand. And another thing I think that really hurt him was that once he lost to Jey Uso, everything that you kind of built up to be this big dominant heel to get beaten by Jey Uso is still kind of a big letdown. Obviously, to the basic casual fan, they don't really care that Jey Uso beat him because, you know, Jey Uso's this top guy, they loved him and stuff like that. But if you're a fan like us, if he loses to Jey Uso, it just looks really bad on paper. So yeah, I feel like that's something that could be brought back. However, it definitely might be a little bit harder than what it could have been.
And to wrap up this video, we're going to talk about who can his WrestleMania 42 opponent be. And we do have a few people in mind. An honorable mention that we don't have on the list that I will just mention just because he's been linked to WWE recently is Chris Jericho. Obviously, you could retire him, or maybe Jericho wins and that leads to something else later down the line. But maybe Chris Jericho is like an honorable mention. I'll say him before we get into our official list. But our official list starts with Penta, the current IC champion. We mentioned earlier that we don't want to necessarily bring him back down to the IC champion, but maybe you do, just to have this banger match at WrestleMania. He could even lose it. It's Penta. It's not like he's a bum who, if he beats Gunther, it looks really, really bad on him. Like, no, Penta has been on a really hot streak since he came into WWE, and Gunther, I don't know if he's been on a hot streak since the AJ Styles retirement. Obviously, he has had some good moments with Dragon Lee, but they haven't really produced anything since that, and obviously that's because of the Rey Mysterio injury, but that's still not really an excuse. There should always be a backup plan in place. There should always be someone else in mind. There should always be something that you could do with someone like Gunther. Because if this was someone like a CM Punk or a Roman Reigns or a Cody Rhodes, I could only imagine someone else would have been it like that. So, yeah, I just hope that Gunther could get that same treatment and someone big could come between this.
Another match that I would like to see at WrestleMania for Gunther is a man that you did just mention, that is Royce Keys. We haven't seen him since Royal Rumble. It's been a few months now since he's been officially signed to the company, so it feels like it's about time that we get him kind of ready going into Mania. Maybe Gunther has some type of a challenge, and that's where we see Royce Keys. But I do want to see Royce in some type of big thing. I think it's been enough time, kind of him been away from TV in general, so it would be nice, a big moment to have your first singles match at WrestleMania, especially versus Gunther, where he probably is going to have one of his best matches to date.
We've seen Gunther do really well with big opponents such as Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, things of that nature. So I don't think it would be any different with a guy like Royce Keys. He's obviously an amazing person. Everything in AEW has been great. He just came off of that amazing match with Hangman Adam Page for the world title at Blood and Guts that we were lucky enough to see in person. And so we're really hyped for Royce Keys' debut in WWE whenever that does happen. But the next person on the list is going to be Rusev. Obviously, he did just kind of have this match with Obafemi. We thought maybe that would be Obafemi's WrestleMania match, but it looks like he's going towards Brock Lesnar. So that opens up Rusev to maybe go towards Gunther, which they would put on a good match, but it's not like a big match, I will say. That's probably like the least one on this list, is like the lower level name on here that maybe you wouldn't love to see on a WrestleMania card.
Yeah, I think for Gunther, obviously, it might be a little bit of a step down for him, but for Rusev, it's a big moment. And I think with his gimmick that he's kind of doing, where he's kind of trying to test himself and challenge all these bigger guys. If you kind of had this thing with Obafemi, didn't come successful, but if he goes against Gunther, maybe it's a different result. Probably not, unfortunately, but at least it's something for Rusev, who I think is deserving of some more time. He has been doing fairly good work over the past few months since joining back to WWE. So, yeah, I think him versus Gunther could be a really fun match. And for this next guy, he has had a little bit of an interaction with Gunther in the past few months, and that's going to be Javon Evans, who currently doesn't have a match either for WrestleMania, but I think this match, singles action, would be one of the best matches of the night. Different styles and different gimmicks, so a clash between these two would definitely be a very fun one, and yeah, this match is definitely a dream match on my list.
Yeah, Javon Evans has had good matches with Gunther, but we haven't seen him go to that next level with Gunther. In the John Cena Retirement Tour tournament, he put on a good fight and stuff like that, but it was pretty much Gunther getting the best of him, chopping him down. Javon had one or two cool moments, but I'd like to see Javon in a more kind of elevated moment against Gunther, where he does have more big moments and he does put up that fight. Maybe he has that close call pin or something like that. I think that would be really nice. But for the last one on this list, we have the one that everyone's been waiting for. I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier in this video, and that is Ilya Dragunov. And I do think this is probably the best direction to go. This is something that everyone's been waiting for. He's been kind of doing this thing with Carmelo Hayes, where he's like, I'm not going to take the U.S. challenge. I'm not going to take it yet. And it kind of seemed like he was just going to do it at WrestleMania. But he actually just took it recently on SmackDown. So maybe that is a direction that, hey, they are maybe kind of opening the door for Ilya Dragunov to go to Raw and kind of face off against Gunther. Because that would be an amazing match. It doesn't need a title on the line. It doesn't need anything on the line. It's just to see who is the best wrestler in this moment and on the biggest stage of them all at WrestleMania.
So we gave you our thoughts about Gunther and the problem that he's currently under, but what do you think? And let us know down in the comments below who you think his WrestleMania opponent would be. If you think there is a problem, what is that problem? How would you fix it? And yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, turn on notifications as well. And we will see you guys in the next one.